Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, the narrative and rhetoric that side proposition is showing about coming out in and of itself is the reason why Lessi shouldn't. The very pushy nature in terms of ascribing a narrative and mold in terms of how you should be comfortable in your own skin and how you, because you're a famous and famed football player, now have to be an example for other people is ultimately perverse and prevents their own ability to live a happy and quiet life. A couple of reasons why their side cannot take this debate. Firstly, let's take a look at the assumptive material they've given us coming from the top of their case. A, they talk about how you have to be proud, you have to be comfortable in your own skin. I think this is something that Matthew and I pushed in our points of information when we were asking why that becomes the end-all be-all of it. That is to say, sure, some people are empowered when they come out and they have a capacity to be able to find support, but that doesn't happen in all instances, as what we've told you in the top of our speech coming from our case line. B, they talked about how people will support you because you're goated and stuff. There is a distinction between your professional life and your personal life, and the introduction that we gave you coming from the start of our case lines was explaining the lens of football and a very valid reason in terms of why Lessi, probably grappling with their own sexuality and figuring out what they want in their own personal life, suggests that they are not comfortable with it. The second thing we have to talk about is how side government equates professional success with your personal life. And if you take a look at the media and how a lot of these things happen in the algorithms, as what Brent and Matthew were also explaining, is that it's likely to lead to comparisons and toxicity that this person who wants to be able to retire and potentially have a more quiet role or even recluse in their own success, something that they've earned, is completely and totally legitimate. The third thing is that, and I think this is quite a tipping point, side proposition assumes everyone is queer in the way that they are left-leaning, progressive, and liberal. Newsflash, it exists in a spectrum as what we talked about in our case line. Not everyone is a dog show diva coded Baus Rufo or McCoy Dubs who is very flamboyant and open with their own sexuality, championing this as something that makes them proud. Being loud and proud is okay, but it doesn't necessarily work for everyone. And I suggest that Lessi, even if they're maybe not comfortable in their own skin, given that they've spent so much time in their professional career, might want to be able to figure these things out and live a quiet life. The fourth is, and this is also a tipping point, side proposition has no nuance to football, meaning consistently, my team and I explained how a lot of these things are bound up in patriarchal and conservative power. That is to say, this isn't a debate about dismantling oppressive structures. This debate is an active debate about what that person should do. And I think the fatal flaw of side proposition is that they equate capacity with motivation. Meaning, just because he can do this doesn't necessarily mean he should. Because, for the reasons that the info side suggests, and the reasons that my partners and I bolstered throughout our case line, suggest certain risks and practical harms and perversions that can happen when you come out in the name of the media and people on side proposition telling you should do so. Very proud to stand on side negative.